Welcome to the Living Well podcast, hosted by Terry Megley, CEO of City Union Mission. In each episode, we bring you inspiring stories of transformation and insights from those who've overcome life's challenges. Join us on this journey of resilience and discovery. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Living Well podcast. It's a podcast of City Union Mission. I am the host for today's episode. My name is Mi Soon Jan. I am the Director of Women and Family Ministry. Today we are here to learn and share with our listening audience the story, the journey of change and journey of hope and transformation for our family in our ministry. The Baughers, Natalia and David, has made a courageous decision to bring change into their lives. Welcome. Can you introduce yourself a little to the audience that is joining us today?
Yeah, my name is Natalia Baugher, and we have 5 kids with us. This is Gracie. She was born on New Year's Day. And then we have Liam, Gabriel, Addie, and Ezra.
Yes.
And I'm David Baugher.
Hi. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. So to let our audience, listening audience, get to know you a little more before we go into the changes you have made and experiencing, what brought you, we will look at what brought you here and how you were brought to City Mission. So can you tell us a little about how you became homeless?
Yeah. We're from Springfield, and we had a home remodeling business, and with me kind of walking the fence of addiction, I spent probably every dollar we had, which put us in a position, and one that, unfortunately we wasn't able to climb out of. We had moved from our place to a weekly motel, and the rent was coming due, and we realized there was no way possible we were going to have the money for the rent. And Natalia, she Googled
Homeless shelters
shelter.
around Springfield.
Yeah, around Springfield. And oddly enough, first on the list was City Union Mission, which is 3 hours away. So we got in touch with Mike, and we talked about it all that next night, and then the next morning, and he had conveyed that City Union Mission had a New Life program, which, we didn't necessarily want to just move into a shelter and be stuck in that. So, and through our conversations about it, I'd never asked where it was at. But anyway, I finally asked that, and she said it was in Kansas City. So, my first thought was Arrowhead. But, I'm like, we got to try something new. So, I scrounged up enough gas money to make the 3-hour trip, and we're here.
Okay.
Which, it's definitely a blessing and a God thing that we're here, because our car was just junk, and like we thought it would break down on the way, so we're like, oh, are we even gonna make it to Kansas City? So we're just like, okay, we feel like this is where we're supposed to be. I mean, we feel like it wasn't coincidence that that's the first thing that popped up, that we were able to get a hold of Mike. There was space, and everything, and we made it known to him from the beginning, like we're there, to get into the program. So God got us here, safely, by a miracle, I believe. So.
Okay. David, you mentioned some addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that we are who we are by nature, some characters that we have, but also we are nurtured by our environment. So can you tell us a little about where you think your addiction came from, how it started?
Yeah, it's kind of a story, but I didn't become addicted until after high school. But going through the classes and the counseling and working through those issues. I mean, it all started at I suffered some abuse at 8,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the disadvantages of growing up I'm telling my age, but growing up in the 70s is, things weren't openly talked about, so, kind of internalize it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once high school and I becoming sport, got involved in sports and it gave me, I think it gave me, outlet to, the anger and all that. And it did, a very, very good job of that. But then, when I graduated high school and I figured out I was not going to play Major League Baseball, then, all the stuff from my childhood kind of came flooding back. And I chose drugs as an outlet for that.
Okay. How did addiction help you? I guess it was a survival tool.
It didn't. Well, first it didn't help me. It numbed
Mm-hmm.
it numbed me, and at the time, I thought, well, as long as I didn't feel anything, then it would be okay. Well, that was wrong. It just kind of masked it, and the whole time through. I mean, this is. The addiction thing was probably 20, 25 years long. And, I mean, the whole time, no, I didn't feel it. But, having that internalized for so long, I don't know how to explain it.
Yes. You are on this journey of change as a family.
Mm.
Sometimes a spouse realize they need to change. They have some trauma and things in life that have become a hindrance to live and thrive, to engage in life and live a purposeful life. But then the other spouse come on program thinking, oh, it's all his fault, all her fault. If they change, we're going to be good. What were your thoughts, Natalia, when you came on program as a family?
I mean, I definitely didn't think that it was all him. Along, like, the lines of the things he was dealing with, when I first met him, he wasn't, actively in addiction or anything. I had faced some issues, nothing like that, but growing up just in a difficult home environment myself. And so those were things I also hadn't dealt with. And I didn't realize it until we started having our issues. So I knew based off of just things he had discussed with me about how the way I acted impacted him, that, and of course he didn't blame me for going back to that, but, I did make it difficult whenever those thoughts did start to arrive based off of my attitude and the way I was acting, due to my trauma that I hadn't dealt with. So we both knew, there were things that we needed to work on, fears that I had and things, self-esteem issues that I needed to work on in order for us to be able to create a stable home environment, So I for sure did not blame him, for all those things. So.
Okay. So let's talk about the journey of change. What were you expecting when you signed up for a New Life program?
Well, honestly, I really didn't know what to expect. I know that, I knew at that time that obviously doing things my way for so long failed miserably. So the only way to get, a different result is to try something different. Yeah.
How about you, Natalia? What are some of the expectations that your family needed to change? Life skills, other areas in your life that you thought had an expectation before you came on program?
I mean, I just remember when we found out we were going to be getting in, and he's all excited and I'm just nervous, so we had opposite kind of reactions. I was excited too, I think, but I just hadn't had the greatest relationships with people, but specifically women, just, with issues with growing up and my mom and things in our relationship. And so I think I was really nervous because the staff was, women, and I'm like, okay, we're going to change and stuff. I just was like, how am I going to do this? But, we were excited because we knew we needed something different, and, we knew there would be accountability and change. And obviously we didn't know specific details of every little thing, but, we just knew, even though it's probably going to be difficult, I mean, our way is not working. So, we got to just trust that God brought us here for a reason, and he revealed that to us in many ways, even before we got in the program. So,
yes, you mentioned women on program. I did your intake and interview, and I informed you that there's going to be 6 to 7 wise and godly women that is going to be walking along your journey and guiding you, teaching you, and maybe sometime needing to correct you. So when you came on program, what was your first expression after 2 months of the program?
I mean, even the first week for me, I was like, where'd all these rules come from? It's kind of like,
yes.
Whoa, we just scratched the surface of what we thought we were getting into. So at first I was like, oh my gosh. But, then I think kind of within those first couple months or couple weeks, we were like, okay, we need this, and slowly just starting seeing changes in the kids too. And the nutritional habits and things, or the behavior. There's always adjustments you have to make still. It's a growing process, but we were seeing those changes, and so we're like, okay, we did the right thing. It's not easy, but, we got to stick with this because we know it's making changes, so.
How about you, David? How was it? It must have been a shocker.
The first couple of months, yeah, I thought a few different times, what did I get myself into? But once it took a while for me to let the walls down and
transparency and honesty is going to take you a long journey. And we can work together only through that. Yes, it had taken a courage to be vulnerable when you share your stories. What are they going to do with that? How are they going to use that? So we needed to build trust with you guys, but trust started you, the whole family, giving us trust. So as we went along this journey, what are things that changed in your life? Some of your belief, your way of doing life. What are you going to take as you embark in your journey of independence?
Some beliefs that changed for me, I think, is messing my life up. No matter how hard I tried to control or do things my way, or it. Once I realized that I never had control to begin with, things, whether for the good or the bad, things in my life, it all happens for a reason. I mean, if it's something bad, then once I understood, instead of focusing on the situation, to look for the lesson in it. And the whole idea of completely letting go and submitting to God and trusting in God. It's been a process, and I think it really hit home, June 23rd.
Yes. Let's hold on to that. Since you are willing to talk about it, during our journey, there's been celebrations of a new baby. You came to a program with 4 cute little, very active children. But during that journey, God did give you another beautiful, cute little girl. Her name is Gracie.
Uh-huh.
She's a little over a month.
Mm-hmm.
She was born in New Year's Day. Yes, there was some blessing, but also there was also during the middle of your journey, there was a tragic event that happened that no parent will ever want to go through it. So to celebrate the change you guys have made, Natalia, could you tell us about what happened, and also if David was the old David, what would he have done?
So that Friday before that, he had just picked the kids up, the boys from school, and his phone had been in the room. It was on the charger, and he just had these missing phone calls and texts. Well, one of the phone calls was from his daughter, who he hadn't heard from in 3 years, and so we're like, what in the world is going on? And they're like, it's an emergency, answer the phone. So he calls him back, and he steps outside and comes back in and just, speechless, like falls to the floor, and found out that our 16-year-old, his son in Springfield, had been shot. So, obviously I couldn't do a lot to help him at the moment or anything. And, he just took off and went straight to Springfield. And obviously, unfortunately, he didn't make it. And the old David, obviously would have gone straight back to the old habits, and that was, I trusted God, but probably not fully at that time. Like, I was just a nervous wreck because I had all the kids with me, and he was there by himself, so I couldn't be there with him just because it was such a last-minute thing. So I'm praying, the whole entire time, like, protect him physically getting there, protect him mentally, emotionally, just, don't let him go back into that, because we had made so much progress already. And so, I really appreciated it because he stayed in contact with me as much as he could. And I know when he came back, it was difficult for both of us because that whole time he was out there, he kind of had to be the strong person for everyone. And so obviously he had spent some time grieving, but being, the dad and pretty much one of the only guys there, he was having to be strong. And so when he came back, like, I had to be strong for him at that point, And so seeing him that way was difficult. And also, feeling that heartbreak too, because to me, he was no different than any of the other kids. But just kept praying, like, help him to get through this and find healthy ways to cope. I was hopeful. I did have some doubts, I'm going to be honest, and I was worried.
Okay.
But, God, I wore my Waymaker shirt, but it's like he really did make a way because he helped him to get through that. And I'm so thankful for that. So
Okay. So now, tell us your point of view. What happened and how this tragedy, dealing with this tragedy, was a little different than the old David.
Yeah, well, the way the phone call went, when my daughter answered the phone and she goes, "Hold on a minute," and I didn't know that she was on her way out of the room, and whenever I heard her voice again, I mean I knew something was wrong, and she said that they were playing video games and somebody had found a gun and they were playing around with it, and he had been shot and was on life support. So on June the 22nd, I would have said my greatest fear would be if something happened to one of my kids, and understandably, I mean, it crushed me, and the whole 3 hours, back down, of course I prayed, God would save my son, and when I got to the hospital, sometimes the answer when we pray, sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no. But I mean, thanks to the things I learned in the classes, beforehand, I was, and thanks to my faith, I understood, that, okay, God knew at 16 years old, he's going to call him home. And then his mom and I, we donated his organs. So the old David would have been, angry at God and, cursing God and all this, but I was never really mad at him, but I did pray that he would show me where he was at. And then through the organ donating, there was 6
Lives changed.
miracles,
Okay.
That took place in it, and my oldest 3 kids, hadn't spoken to me in 3 or 4 years, and out of that tragedy, that rebuilding process has begun. So.
Yes.
and same with my family as well. We had noticed before we went back down for the funeral that my mom had donated to the fund for his funeral expenses. And so he was like, you really need to reach out to her, and we had a broken relationship for most of my life. And so, I mean, I was a nervous wreck. I did not want to go and see her, especially considering the situation, she was respectful. We weren't there long, but since then, we've seen her again, and it was good for Christmas and things. And so that rebuilding relationship has started too. And so, I can't be more thankful for that, because I never thought I would be able to talk to her or the rest of my family. So,
yes, God does promise to those who love him to bring all things together for the good. So it is a greatest tragedy that a parent can face, and that is our greatest fear with parents with children, that something will happen to our children. But you have, instead of running away, numbing yourself, you have decided to face on, engage.
Yeah, as you know, I did in fact relapse.
Yes.
But, the difference between me now and the old me would have, went straight down in that hole again. But that again, drawing strength from God. I mean, I was able to pick myself up from that and move forward.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And we will continue as brothers and sisters to come along with you and still grieve properly. Okay.
And I can say he told me the whole time he was out there, he's like, I heard everyone's voice in my head, like all the teachers, all the lessons I learned, and Miss Cammie and Miss Soon, and he said the whole time I'm just hearing them in my head tell me all these things we learned, which isn't a bad thing. So.
Yes.
Yeah. I got down there, it was Friday night, I think, and they were doing some well, they said, his brain was inactive, and they had done some tests all that next day, and they said, all right, in the morning they're going to do one last test, and all that Saturday, a whole entire day, I'm sitting in the room and praying and fighting that urge to go back into the old lifestyle. And I did. I mean, I heard, it was,
yes.
If it wasn't for the classes and hearing, your guys' voice, and I have no doubt that I would have.
Yes.
I would have went back into that lifestyle.
Thank you. Okay. Now, let's switch subject and let's talk about the good things. So, Natalia, tell me some things that the program impacted you. You guys talked about classes and our voices.
Yeah.
So, what are things that impacted you in your journey of change, the New Life program?
I mean, for me, just the foundation of having good, people to lift me up and to see my strengths, because that's something I had experienced before, people seeing my strengths and encouraging me in that. And so because of that, I was dealing with a lot of self-esteem issues and just doubt. But once I, was doing the things I needed to do and seeing that I was having success in them, but, with God's help and everyone's support, I saw the things that God had given me. And so that helped me in every area. Just things I hadn't really thought of as far as helping the kids, because it wasn't anything that we did growing up, but just more of a structure for them, chore charts now and things that are really helping, teach them the skills they need to know. So when they get older, they won't do these things. Healthy eating and everything. I never grew up eating healthy either. During all my other pregnancies, did not eat healthy at all. And so, after having her and even before having her, I felt so much better, making those positive changes. And then one of the biggest things for me is, like he kind of said, that trust, even though we've had trials and things, and then, her coming early and the constant sickness during the winter with the kids, through all of it, there might have been a moment where I was frustrated, because things got overwhelming. But compared to the old me, I was able to look at it and be like, okay, like he said, God's bringing something out of this, whether it's when the kids were home, I got to spend extra time with them, whether it was her coming early. She was born on New Year's Day, and plus there's just the praise out of the fact that she's healthy. So every little thing, and also being in a constant atmosphere of just like God's presence, whether it's listening to worship music, and then just, I think, being in that presence where you have godly people around you constantly. And so I think that's teaching me for even after we, leave and have our own place and things, that staying in his presence really helps us to get through, and it's really encouraging. So.
Okay. So David, we are as family looking forward to graduating from the program. So David, tell us some of the things that you are now looking forward to.
Well, I'm looking forward to a new life. Recently got a job that was a God thing at some place I probably would have never have gotten a job on my own. I think I'm looking forward to the most to leading my family as a godly dad and a godly husband.
Yes. How about you, Natalia? What are you looking forward to as we get ready to launch into independent life? No more 7 ladies telling you what to do. You have to, you are now equipped and empowered to do that as a family, the Baughers.
I think for me, it's just that structure. And I mean, before things were so chaotic. I mean, things come up, in life. But before, that was our life constantly. And it was just, it impacted the kids' behavior. I'm sure it impacted everyone's health, mental health and things like that. And now, kids are kids, so they're still going to act up. But, like I said, just teaching them the skills moving forward and having that life that it's like they know what to expect, we know what to expect, and we can actually work together as a team now, and then when something does come up, that something changes, it's not going to be as chaotic, because we've dealt with constant change here too, and just know how to handle it, together as a team, and get the kids on board and just attack the problem. So
yes. So for the last question of the day, I would like to ask you, what would you tell people in your similar situation who is stuck in life that needing change? What would you tell them as you have walked the journey and taking that courage, that difficult steps to bring change, a better change into your life?
I would probably the fear is understandable. The biggest step is for someone, I think, to realize they have an unmanageable problem. Change is not supposed to necessarily be fun. Sometimes it hurts. But the payoff in the end is words can't describe it.
How about you, Natalia?
I think one of the biggest things would be to not be embarrassed to reach out for help, because that's something I grew up that you weren't supposed to reach out for help and stuff, because it's embarrassing or it's a pride thing. But, whenever you get to that point where you just know, like you said, it's unmanageable. You're not going to be able to get out of that if you don't ask for help. Just because you're asking for help doesn't mean you're taking advantage of anything. You're appreciating the help that you're giving me guidance. And so that's the first thing I would say, just, take that step of faith and do it. And then, just knowing it's not going to be fun. There's times when you're going to be like, what am I doing? Did I make the right choice? But like you said, at the end of the day, when you see the progress that you've made, all that work is worth it. And this year has gone by so fast. Next weekend, we would have been in Kansas City for a whole entire year, and it does not feel like it. So, it's for a season. You're getting that guidance and everything. And then after that, I would rather, us take that period of life and go through that hard work than to continue living my whole life like that,
And also, it doesn't, whether it's, somebody on the street homeless or an addict, they need to understand that they were chosen for a purpose. The purpose wasn't to be homeless or be an addict. Life happens. God still loves them. They could never wander too far. He's always right there.
Yes. They need to if they take this courageous step to want to change and seek help and do the work,
Yeah.
life will change. And your family has proven to us that it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Thank you for sharing your story and even your difficult stories. Thank you. And thank you for joining us in the Living Well, a podcast of City Union Mission. Don't forget to follow us in the social media for updates of what we are doing and updates on changed lives. Partner with us by visiting cityunionmission.org. Be blessed and see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to The Living Well. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media for even more inspiration. Want to join our mission? Visit cityunionmission.org. Stay inspired, and we'll catch you next time.